We'll call the meeting to order this morning at 9:01 a.m. Everyone has seen the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to propose a brief update under J for County Council Committee updates on my attendance of the Truth and Reconciliation training yesterday in Stanhope.
Okay, thanks, John. We'll add that as J1. Any other additions or deletions? Klaus?
I'll move the agenda as amended.
Klaus says motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving down then, the adoption of the minutes. Before you have the minutes of the November 17th, 2022 council meeting. Any errors or omissions found in the minutes? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Eric. Eric has moved the minutes of the council meeting of November 17th, 2022 as presented. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we do have 3 time commitments today. We have a delegation at 9 a.m. We have another delegation at 9:30, and then we have a public hearing at 10 a.m. So with that, we will start our first delegation, D1, 9 a.m., the Regional Director of Emergency Management presentation. Morning, Byron. Morning, Clayton. How are you guys this morning? Floor is yours, Clayton. Would you maybe introduce yourself and your title before you start?
So I am Clayton Rufford, the Director of Emergency Management here for Lethbridge County. So I am here to present our regional emergency management concept to you guys today. Yeah, I'll get right into our slides here. So a bit of background behind it. The concept started getting discussed a lot back in December of 2021. So a year ago now, where Lethbridge County and Coaldale started discussing some ways we could improve the emergency management system here within Lethbridge County, as well within the municipalities that we look to partner with to carry this concept forward. In January of 2022, the DEMS and CAOs attended a meeting with Alberta Emergency Management Agency where AEMA kind of outlined some different models and concepts to regionalization and some different ways we can look at it and some of the benefits that we could receive by going to a regional model instead of our individual models that we all currently operate in. In January 2022, AEMA also conducted a municipal elected officials course, which there was some individuals from here, from council that participated in, as well as I think we got councillors from all the councils within Lethbridge County, for the most part, on that course as well. In that meeting as well, AMA did a bit of a speech on regionalization and the benefits of that during that course. In February, we got the stakeholders together and did a survey with kind of the DEMS and CAOs again of how we might look at regionalization a little bit further and what that process would look like, because it is a bit of a process to carry that out. In April, we sat down again with the CAOs and DEMS to provide a little bit of further input into a plan of if we were going to carry this forward, how would we actually go about exploring this concept. And then in May, we met again with the CAOs to kind of go over a plan a little bit further and tweak a few things, and as well as put some numbers to it of what this system would cost us to implement. And then finally in October, just prior to this, we met to kind of fine-tune the cost aspect of it, so that kind of all the CAOs were accepting of the cost to their municipality of what that might look like if we did go forward with it and explore options of doing a grant as well. So we had that meeting. After that, it was decided that we finally had enough of a proposal together to be able to bring it back to everybody's council. So that brings us to now. So why regional? Really, we're looking at a lot of events that are getting to be more frequent, seem to be getting bigger and more complex for us to deal with as emergency management and within our communities. And this is kind of seen all over the place, not just here. So this is just a few examples in the last few years that just finding some news articles and through our after action reports of some local events that have happened, just some pictures of that. But events seem to be getting worse, as well as our events seem to cross borders more and more often because they seem to be getting bigger. So we've also had a few coordinated responses between ourselves and other municipalities. This Willow Creek fire was actually one that we helped out the MD of Willow Creek with. Here, I guess it probably would have been a year ago or 2 years ago now. And then these events just seem to be getting larger and larger, and they don't just affect one municipality. So other of these events such as the MD of Tabor, Vulcan County, those events are affecting multiple municipalities within their region. And I know we've seen a lot here as well that have affected not just Lethbridge County, but they'll affect Colehurst, the town of Coaldale, other municipalities. So when we have large events, something similar to the exercise that we did run here back in September, where we have a type 3 event where we require lots of personnel and we might be operating for a few days on that event. It becomes quite a large response, and there's a lot of personnel that are needed. And if we look at ourselves here at Lethbridge County or the town of Coaldale kind of being two of the larger organizations in the county, oftentimes we struggle to fill all the positions required to have an effective response. So that's a huge aspect of the regional concept, would be being able to draw from staff from all our partnering municipalities as well, and combining our trained personnel between Lethbridge County and the town of Coaldale. Another component of the regional, or some components of the regional emergency management system. If we did go forward with it, we would have a regional emergency advisory committee. So similar to our emergency advisory committee that we have here, made up of county council, but it would be expanded to include all the partnering municipalities. And that regional emergency advisory committee would be authorized through a ministerial order to make sure that it was functioning appropriately. We would have a regional emergency management agency, which would include a regional DEM, regional DDEMs, but as well each municipality would still maintain a DEM within their system to be able to do some aspect of local emergency management. And then our municipal employees, as I mentioned on the other slide, we would be able to go through and pick out our employees from different municipalities that happen to specialize in certain areas. Whether that's operations or finance or planning or logistics, we would be able to plunk the best fit people from different organizations into more or less an incident management team to come together in the event of emergency. When it was discussed between the CAOs and kind of the proposal for this concept in the beginning is the lead municipality being the town of Coaldale. But the idea was that lead municipality would most likely be whoever the holder of the regional DEM is at the time. So for example, if I was not with the town of Coaldale anymore and I was gone and somebody else decided to employ the regional DEM, they would kind of take the lead on the partnership. So as the lead municipality, we would employ the regional DEM. One of the concerns that was brought up at the time is if we're amalgamating all our communities, A lot of us are busy already, so we propose the addition of emergency management coordinator to be able to help that coordination of all that emergency management stuff amongst the communities, in addition to just having a DEM. So kind of how that structure would look. Very similar to what the top half anyway, what we see within our community. But we would have a Regional Emergency Advisory Committee, again made up of all the partnering councils. We would have a regional DEM. We would also appoint regional DDEMs. So these would be people that are already within the system, that are very capable and qualified to act in the absence of the regional DEM should something have to happen while that individual is gone or on vacation. The emergency management coordinator would be in there as well, reporting to the regional DEM. And then from there, each municipality, if they had the capacity, would still maintain their municipal DEM. If they didn't, there would just be a little bit of extra delegation of authority through the agreement back to the regional system if they were unable to maintain a municipal DEM as well. And then we would have our regional emergency management agency, which is basically everybody that excuse me, comes together to respond to the event when it actually happens. So a regional director of emergency management would have very similar tasks and responsibilities as a normal director of emergency management. They would serve as the chair for the regional emergency management agency, so heading up that agency, making sure it functions and that we prepare and have all our plans in place and up to date. Coordinating our emergency services during an event. Performing other functions and duties as prescribed by the Emergency Advisory Committee. So, our committee still does have a lot of input into there of initiatives and stuff like that. So anything else that might come up with initiatives. And then recommending the appointment of the deputy directors of emergency management. So such as taking somebody from within the system that's qualified and experienced and recommending to the committee that they be appointed. So our regional deputy directors of emergency management, we'd like to see at least 2 appointed within the system if we were to create that regional concept. And again, they would act as a relief capacity or a fill-in if our regional DEM was absent. But with the key being that we don't just want to slap anybody in those positions. We want them to be super capable people that have been trained and have a significant amount of experience. Our municipal director of emergency management, so this would be the individual municipalities would still have the ability to have a DEM appointed. They would kind of be that lead coordination piece that would coordinate with the regional DEM. The regional DEM and stuff would still be responsible for developing the plans, maintaining the plans. This is almost just kind of another layer of backup for that municipality should something go wrong. But they would serve as that key contact internally within the organization, participate as a part of the regional emergency management agency. And that's not saying if, take for example, the Village of Barons had a DEM appointed still, that in a large event they couldn't access the regional system if they tapped out their resources, which might be any event that they do participate in. The emergency management coordinator, there would be a lot of initial workload to the regional system. We would have to look at each community and amalgamate our emergency management plans into one functioning plan to make sure that we were prepared for an emergency. As well as there's a lot of communities such as ourselves that have a very high functioning system currently. So we would want to maintain that high level of service with our emergency preparedness. That emergency management coordinator would basically help with a lot of the day-to-day stuff, maintaining records, implementation of exercises throughout the system, making sure that our plans are up to date. Again, you're taking, instead of ourselves as Lethbridge County and having one plan and one set of contacts. We're now amalgamating all 6 municipalities if everybody were to join the system. So it's quite a bit of work to be done in that aspect. And it would really provide, the addition of that emergency management coordinator would provide an extra body that we know would be around during emergencies as well. Our proposal with facilities, there'd be a lot of duplication if we had all 6 municipalities come together for one emergency management system. So our proposal was we would maintain Coaldale south of the river and Picture Butte north of the river. They're the 2 most highly functioning emergency operations centers right now, with the most equipment and best setups, which would help save some costs in the fact of maintaining, instead of maintaining 6, we would maintain 2 that are highly functioning. One is a primary and one is a backup. There is some costs associated with it. So we had 2 different streams that we looked at. We looked at it from the perspective of if we did get a grant or if we didn't get a grant, and went from there. So the grant significantly reduced the cost to municipalities. And the year 1 jumps up a little bit for everybody in the no grant stream. Mainly from the perspective of there was the addition of a vehicle in there for emergency management coordinator to be able to go around. So we could see, and there was a lot of discussion at the CAO level, if within the fleet we had a vehicle that could be reassigned, we could see a significant drop within that stream as well. There's a lot of benefits from looking at a regional emergency management system. We would have a significant reduction of duplication of resources. You look at it right now, again, we have 6 emergency operations centers. Some of them may or may not be up to the same level as all of them, but with that intent that they probably should be. It would ensure adequate supplies regionally, making sure we maintain a stockpile of everything. It would really provide consistency throughout the region. It would be the same people showing up to the same events instead of in different municipalities, different people showing up. Whereas with our RCMP, we might see the same individuals because they are there all the time, whereas they'll be dealing with a different, right now, dealing with a different dam, dealing with different people with every event. So we would see a lot of consistency through that as well. It would across the board increase the quality and availability of training, so it would make sure that everybody had access to training. And a huge component or a huge benefit would be as well as if there's a large event that's going to affect neighboring municipalities, us as Lethbridge County are probably going to be involved in some aspect of mutual aid anyway. So this would kind of create that partnership ahead of time before an event happens. So really our next steps, this is getting presented to every council within Lethbridge County. Some have had it already, and I did hear just before the meeting that we have had some positive feedback. I know Picture Butte did pass a motion, I think it was this week. I got an email from them, and it did sound like some other communities have as well. But our next step, it was to basically present this to all our councils and see if councils are interested in proceeding to draft an agreement, which the agreement would then come back to councils for approval for an emergency management system. From there, if the agreements were approved, we would have our bylaws drafted and then put in an application for a ministerial order to create our Regional Emergency Advisory Committee. So that was kind of I think that's the end of that.
Ann?
Just one thing too, going back and forth with the CAOs, because a lot of our municipalities already have ACAP funding in, Pitcher Butte has offered to do the funding should we go forward. So we do have one of the municipalities to be the lead on the grant funding. So we wouldn't be doing that because we've already got ACAP funding in.
Okay. Thank you very much, Clayton. I would open up to council. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of questions. I kind of got a little lost in the concept of regional. When you first had the screen up there, you had the municipalities that are within the county, and then
Yes.
you started talking about Vulcan and Willow Creek and the MD of Tabor. So what is their role in it?
That was more or less just other examples of events that have happened where we've seen the need for regional systems or regional responses, more or less. So they wouldn't have any role within it. That was just some previous examples of events. So it would just be within Lethbridge County and our municipalities within it.
So then just a couple of other things.
Yep.
You talked about the regional dam versus a municipal dam. So at what point does the regional dam become involved over the municipal dam, I guess? Are the fire departments still independent, or are they all part of a new group, or?
Yeah, so it really doesn't have anything to do with the fire departments themselves. It's strictly a regional emergency management system. So with the regional DEM would deal with most of the day-to-day stuff, along with the emergency management coordinator. So the creation of the plans, our committee meetings, those types of things. What the municipal DEM does is just kind of provides that municipality with the ability, if there is something smaller going on, that we can still do some public messaging, some different local tasks within our municipality, if they so choose, without having to tap into that regional aspect. With that being said, there's nothing stopping them from us from, in any event, using that regional system as a response. It just kind of provides that extra layer. And that was kind of based off some of our other other neighboring municipalities that have regionalized, that have maintained some type of municipal DEM in place as well. But they still do contribute a lot to the regional makeup.
Go ahead, Lauren.
And sorry, then one last question. I noticed, where is the city of Lethbridge in this?
And I might defer to Ann too, but I think there was and actually it might have been our field officer that said that. It might not have been Ann. Sorry if I misquoted, but I think you were in the meeting anyway. But the city wasn't interested at this time in looking at exploring anything with us. And I think that was our field officer that had provided that, if I remember correctly.
Claus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I still seen Barron's on the list, and we kind of all know that Barron's hopped out.
So we got to remember, there's a difference between emergency services and emergency management, right? Emergency management is in the event of a crisis or an
and so I can
emergency,
expand
right?
on that. So yeah, there's emergency services, which is more so our fire services. The emergency management is more our disasters, so the coordination of the fire, police, EMS, and those types of things. They were taking this proposal as well to their council, because they still do have a DEM and stuff like that within their community.
Byron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify too, like with emergency management, it covers things like flooding, your sewer system could go out in your community, your water stuff. So it's emergency management is away from the fire service. Yes, in a lot of emergency management incidents, fire services do become part of it, but this is over and above anything to do with fire departments.
Yeah, they play a huge role in it, and oftentimes we defer to our fire services for a lot of the input and stuff like that, because and especially in our sizes of communities where we don't have a lot of extra people to rely on, but it is a very separate piece.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few things. How does the Blood Tribe play into this, as they share a large boundary and often their incidents seem to spill into our territory?
So they are currently a mutual aid partner with us, and they would stay a mutual aid partner. They did participate in our exercise, but they wouldn't be within the regional system, but they would continue to be a mutual aid partner, and we'd continue to work with them proactively as well. Similar to what we do with our other neighboring communities as well, MD at Willow Creek, Vulcan County, Tabor, and all the way around.
Thank you. How often would a level 3 response be required?
Level 3 is more infrequent. We have seen a few in recent years that should be at that level type 3 response. And just thinking, since I've been the DEM for Lethbridge County, we've probably had at least 2. And we were on the cusp of maybe having 3 to 4 with some of the fires that if they had gotten a little bit worse in the last couple of years. And that's just thinking 2019. So I think is when we took over or started our contract with you guys. It was in 2019. So we've probably seen 2 for sure, but almost 4 in the last few years.
And what is the nature of most of those responses?
2 of them have been train derailments, and 2 of them have been fires.
Okay. The cost associated with this, if I understand information right, are we asking for 2 extra positions to be made that the association or so would be putting on payroll?
Just 1. So our regional DEM, which right now would be myself, is already a part of the system. So it's 1 additional position that we would add in underneath of it.
Okay. If we're amalgamating the response, and I hear about overlap and multiple layers, can we not look at a cost savings versus a cost addition?
And that's kind of in the middle. So some of the communities do see a cost savings, where their level of how much they've been putting into it is already. So Picture Butte actually sees a drastic cost savings with this model. Their per capita spending for emergency management is close to $23 per capita currently. Ours in Coaldale is close to $10 or $11 per capita currently, where we're sitting at. Barron's was down around the $3 per capita with what they currently have budgeted. And this is just numbers from when we did our survey of all the DEMs and CAOs of what's in the budget. And Lethbridge County is right around that $3.95 per capita is what we see budgeted. Colehurst was around that 10 as well, close and similar to where the town of Coaldale was. So there was communities that seen, from the extreme on Picture Butte's end, where they put a lot of funds into emergency management. They seen a bit of quite a significant cost reduction. To the opposite end of even Barron's, where Nobleford was I think lowest per capita that they actually put in, and they see a significant cost increase in their system, and it's it's kind of hard to compare in a way with our systems being so different. We kind of based it on trying to maintain what Lethbridge County, what Picture Butte, and what Coaldale currently have in place, but bring it together. So I think overall, some see a cost reduction, some see a bit of a cost increase, but it was trying to maintain kind of a standard of where do we take it from here. So it was very hard to compare municipality to municipality.
So far, if half of our responses have been fire, and often there's civilians involved. Now trains, I can recognize that takes a professional response, but is this going to be limiting the amount of public input to a response? And often they're a critical part of having a successful response.
There is a lot of other aspects. So if we look at our agency, and I think this will address your question, but if we look at our agency, there's a lot of partners within our agency. So in our agency, we typically have our normals, our fire, police, and EMS. But our agency is also made up of community groups, stuff like Red Cross, Salvation Army. If we start to break it down, you know, individually, whether it's Picture Butte, Coaldale, or Lethbridge County, we start to see church groups actually involved and other community groups that are actually a part of that agency as well. So there is a lot of input from various citizen groups and partners that we do deal with during an event.
Thank you.
Ann?
Just a suggestion too for council is tomorrow we have a full day budget meeting. So if we wanted to flesh out more of the cost, we can get Larry and Jen to speak to this a bit more tomorrow during the budget process, if that would be helpful.
And just in terms of time, we do have I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We do have a 9:30, but if there's anything else while Clayton is here, more than willing to open up for more discussion just for a couple quick minutes here. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a very quick question. You say when the emergency or the regional system gets called out and activated, who actually pays the cost when they decide to call out another other departments? Like, is that to the community that has the incident, or how does this work?
Yeah, so everything within the emergency management system itself would be captured within that. So all our budgeted costs of supplies, stuff like that, would all be within the system, so that would come out of our budget. If it's actually associated with the event itself, say we had a large train derailment or a large wildfire that we had an evacuation with, or even, you know, say the town of Coaldale had an ammonia leak out of the arena facility that we had to activate for and evacuate a large portion of town. If we did have something like that, those costs would still be associated back to the event. So whether that would be a billable event or how that would go would still be normal as if it was a normal response. It would just be the day-to-day operating costs that are covered within the system, which are kind of how, for the most part, it's included now. There would be no additional cost shared back and forth. You know, if we were to provide Lethbridge County for an event, you know, we activated and we brought our regional team together, there'd be no associated costs from that regional team coming together to respond to the event. But if we were bringing in backhoes or other fire departments or stuff like that, that type of stuff would still get costs associated out as it does right now.
Thank you very much, Clayton. Thank you to all the work that you've put into this to this point. I know, I think when we started down this road, the idea of working together and that regional collaboration framework, I think was something that we were, you know, supportive of for sure. I think that bringing some professionalization to the position was important to this. You know, I think in the past, you know, it sat on the corner of someone's desk and that person might have been well-intended, but their job was within the municipality and it wasn't the focus of their job to take care of this portfolio. And I think we saw that a perfect example was when we did have the exercise and one of the municipalities, because of a change in staffing, they didn't have any representation. So if that emergency would have happened that day in that municipality, they wouldn't have had a DEM. They wouldn't have been prepared. So it would have been that regional response taking over. So I think that was a perfect example of how this kind of, you know, helps to cover off in those instances. So like I said, just in the respect of everyone's time, we'll maybe move on from this for now and we can deal with it a little bit later. But thank you very much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So we do have another delegation. Green Prairie is here this morning. I would ask if you'd like to come forward to the mics there and introduce yourselves. Good morning.
Hi. Morning. John Van Heerden, Green Prairie. Yeah, we got asked to come here and do a presentation on what's happened with our last situation with the fire there, which you guys are well aware of. Start off with, I think between all the departments and what's happened in the whole scenario there, we've seen some issues that we had to deal with right away. I talked to the fire chief at the time, and I told him, because we're dealing with a bill that is way over what we budgeted for and what our insurance company had budgeted for, made it clear to him that this was where it's gonna be, and he assured me from every angle that that it was not gonna go over that budget, and he's dealing directly with the insurance company, and he was talking to the insurance company as well, and then we get the bill. Yeah, so I think 8 months later, six or 8 months later, it's completely out of the budget plus. Top of that, we didn't get a response for why and the issues till roughly 6 to 8, 7 months later, but we never got any, so we were waiting for response from the fire department. So our request is to keep the bill at $250,000, which was insured for. And the other request I have is to have our get our fire services done through Coaldale versus Lethbridge. It's been quite a challenge to work with Lethbridge throughout the years, in a sense of their whole management, chiefs versus chiefs. One says this and another says that, and we need to mass confusion. Or quite concerned if it wasn't for Coaldale and also our own fire department that we have, we could have lost a lot more than what we've done because of their not being, we felt, not doing, and if you look at the videos, we got everything on video, how they respond. It's very pathetic, and we really feel that sometimes when we sat down and decided what we're going to do, we'd have our daily sessions, and after the fire was doused, basically under control, everything under control, they're going to leave, and then another chief come on staff, says, well, we're not leaving, we're staying here, we're going to douse this. And we've went through these fires many times, and tried to douse a hay fire is pretty much impossible, which a number of you guys can understand that here, and especially at that magnitude. To be there for an extra week, and to be there an extra, not understanding how to put out a hay fire is something that we see as very incompetent for a fire department that size, and what they should have known, what they should have done. And I think it was very unfortunate that it worked out this way, and then on top of it, the bill was just astronomical, which we have done before with Coaldale. We've been there for close to 30 years, 25 some plus years. We've had a few fires, and we've dealt with fires around the countryside numerous times with hay and sheds and stuff. And we have a pretty good understanding of what to do there, how to deal with it, how to keep it under control. And those are some of the things that they just don't understand. And here we are stuck with a bill that is not really ours. It should have been a fraction of that from that perspective. And then on top of that, it's the cleanup. That's even a bigger job. We had to spend probably close to, I would say, 10 times as much for cleanup than we would have otherwise. That's runs into the hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the situation that they led us into. So our strong request is to be under a fire department that understands the scenarios in a rural area, and not to be under this kind of a scenario again, because we're very, very concerned about protecting our property and what happens around the property after, at the fire, and they don't seem to understand that, so that's kind of our request, and, yeah, if you got some questions, sort of how we see it, and, we've kind of made it clear, you come out, this is how we feel, this is how we see it, and, we need some competent people to be able to do that.
Thank you very much. Maybe before I open up to council, I would just turn it to Anne. I know that you've had discussions with Anne and Larry and staff, and maybe if there was anything that administration would like to add.
Just for council's benefit, there's been a lot of meetings back and forth with the city on this bill because the fire was quite a while ago. We've also met with John and his team at Green Prairie. We went out and had a conversation on this. Right now, I believe there is approximately 80,000 outstanding, and that's the amount. My recommendation would be that we bring a report back to council, and we can do that quite quickly. Time is of the essence, so we would be able to do that for the meeting on the 15th. Just outline everything for council, so council could see where the costs were, similar to what we're doing for the other situation.
Are you in a position to address who the responding fire department would be in the future? Is that something you?
Yes, we have made some changes to the fire department and the response area. And starting January 1st, 2023, Coaldale will be your responding fire department.
Thank you, Anne. I would open it up to council for any questions that council might have. Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that, getting feedback from administration in the next meeting, I think will probably bring us a little bit further on to what exactly went on and everything like that we could have some open, fair discussion about it.
Thanks, Klaus. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this a similar situation where Byron could have helped direct services to a more efficient effect if he had been granted, had exercised the authority over the situation?
Yes.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just out of curiosity, is the total bill 330 then? If you're talking about 80 more on top of the 250?
Yes, approximately.
I do believe too, Councillor Hickey, that the original bill was 430 or 450. We did negotiate with the city to bring the bill down quite a bit, but there still is the outstanding amount of 80,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We dealt with fires for quite a few years, and especially straw fires and whatever. So the city of Lethbridge, they, for what I understand, John, is they just didn't understand how to approach that type of fire.
Right.
And what could they done different? Like,
Well, it's, first of all, first issue is to get the fire under control, where you have full control over the fire, everything's under control, and it's protected. And as you see a building coming down, and you have hay underneath that building, and it's smoldering, and it's not gonna go out. It's gonna stay there. But if you start dousing water on there, that just makes it so much bigger. So we ended up dousing millions of gallons of water there through the next, from the Friday we had decided they can go home, we'll deal with it. We have our own fire department, we've got 24-hour staff, we have everything there, plus we have had fire trucks there ourselves, be able to deal with it, and just to control it, let it burn out and clean the place up. We've done that several times before on the farms and wherever it might be, but this was such a massive amount of hay in there that they had to keep on spraying with trucks for days and days and days on end. And then you got that whole mess that you had to clean up. So we ended up having to clean this mess up, but we had no place. The dump wouldn't take it. Nobody would take it. It's got steel in there. It's got this in there. We ended up we got some land up in Brooks. We had to dump it we have got a big hole there. We ended up bringing it all there. It's like 150 or 200 loads of trash that we had to run out there to be able to get rid of this stuff, because we could not get rid of this stuff. Nobody would take it. And it caused a severe problem, not only the firefighting, the cost of being there for another 10 days or however long it was that they were trying to blow this fire out, because you can't do that. It was the cost of just cleaning up everything. It's just astronomical mess. And you can't, it's loading up on this, there's a little smolder there. You go down the road and you gotta be so incredibly careful. So it just compounded the problem 10 times and then some.
So you guys asked, the city of Lethbridge was responding to that fire, we know how to handle it from here on, but they wouldn't let go, eh?
No, we had an agreement. One of the chiefs, he understood, he comes from the farm. He understood. He says, we understand, you guys can handle this. It's no problem. So they're going on their way out. We had one truck left, and then we had a call coming in that there was a big north wind coming up. It's just a real big, says just hang tough here for a bit, maybe just don't leave yet, just for safety's sake. And that's when the whole works come back, everything, I don't know how many trucks come back. And we actually handled the fire ourselves already. They weren't even ready for the fire when they come back. We had everything under control, and they were quite upset that we did that because of, had put a bad name on them because of, we put the fire out. And it's, we can prove all that, it's all on video, it's all cameraed, it's all there. And that happened over and over again, and it was just so unorganized. And yeah, the next time the next chief come in, and he kind of come in there as a hostile sort of a takeover. He demanded this, demanded that. So whatever it takes, it doesn't matter. It's something that we need to deal with. These are the situations, and talking through this, it's quite a frustrating thing to work through, especially in that time when you're dealing with on-the-minute decisions that you got to make, and deal with all kinds of different issues surrounding the fire.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just sort of on a high level, because you're familiar with it and you're aware of it and you know how to handle these situations, what, and I'm trying to read between the lines, but I'm just going to sort of ask the question, is that what would you have preferred happen there? Just to have it monitored and burn itself out, as opposed to continually dousing it with water and making a large slurry mess?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It just smolders, it's undercover. The tin is usually over top of it. It's undercover. It's not that it's a big threat to anything compared to what was 2 days before. You don't have flames anywhere. It's, you could have sparks going, but that's where we're, on all sides, we're controlled with our own fire department that we have. We're controlling that 24 hours a day, which we could have easy, we've done that before, and it's, that's probably the easiest thing that we can do from that perspective.
And sorry, just follow up on that. So had that happened, that would have left you with a significantly smaller amount of debris to deal with, if I can
Yeah.
sort of put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Good.
Any other questions from council?
So I heard you say the insurance didn't even agree with the amount of time and the billing, what was done towards that fire. Like the insurance, they thought it was way over to what it should be, like you were saying earlier.
I don't think I mentioned that. What I explained is to the fire chief at the time, is I have a policy here that covers 250,000. And we need to understand that if you go over to 250,000, it's only your dollar, it's not my dollar. I said, you can stay here as long as you want, but I'm not pitching anything in there from that perspective. It's very clear. He says, that is well taken care of. I'm in touch with the insurance company and that you don't have to worry about. So that's fine, as long as we can do that. Then you wanna get things on paper. They don't wanna put nothing on paper. They don't wanna put anything, in writing from that perspective. This is just a word between the chief and myself and word against his word, so.
Ann?
I just wanted to thank Green Prairie for coming and apologize for miscommunication last time, whatever happened. I think it was on our end. But we will bring a report forward, administration will, for the December 15th meeting, and then we'll be in touch after that's done.
Please.
You mind if I just add one more point? I'll highlight something John said earlier. And my name is Craig Rumer. I'm the VP Finance at Green Prairie. So I work with John on almost all matters, corporate and big. And that was, John said, the length of time it took for the City of Lethbridge Fire Department to release its report. So this fire happened, June 30th. It was effectively out on July 2nd. We did not get a report released until February of the following year. We tried to chase it. The insurance company, through its adjuster, chased. Took us a long time. I think that I'm not sure what the City of Lethbridge Fire Department was doing. I mean, we attempted to motivate them by contacting other members of administration to motivate, but they were doing something without consequence or regard to the consequence of their decision. And if this will be an $8 to $10 million claim when it's finally done. And if they delayed the entire claim by 6 months by their, well, you call it what you will, and so just apply an interest cost to that, $8 to $10 million over 6 months. So they decide things without consequence to others, was our perspective, and that would be the exact same thing we saw with dousing the fire. Not without regard to the consequence of the downstream disposal, which they could or should have known. So there's something that's happened twice here, and that is why John is quite concerned. I think you sort of sense it, but I just wanted to highlight the point of the length of time it took the city to respond to us on a report that they should have had out by the end of the month. So, thank you. You'd think.
Anything else from council? Thank you both very much for coming in today. I completely understand your concerns, and as I'm sure you're aware, our last meeting and then again today, we're dealing with obviously on a somewhat smaller scale, but a similar matter where, I think that it's fair to question the appropriateness of the response that was delivered. And so, like I said, can sympathize with your concerns and understand where you're coming from. And as Ann suggested, I would entertain a motion to direct administration to bring that report back. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would happily make that motion.
Thank you. John has moved to direct administration to bring a report back on this matter to our December 15th council meeting. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you both for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and listening.
Thank you. We have a public hearing scheduled for 10 a.m. this morning, so why don't we take a short recess and we can reconvene for our public meeting. Yes. We'll call our regular meeting back to order at 10:01. And if we move down in our agendas to item E, public hearings, we have a 10 a.m. So at this time, I would recess the regular meeting. We are here for Bylaw 22-015, road closure, sale and consolidation. I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing. Morris has moved that we open the public hearing for Bylaw 22-015, road closure, sale and consolidation. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act as amended. The public hearing is being live streamed via the county's YouTube page. And with that, I would declare the public hearing for Bylaw 22-015 now officially open. I'll ask the Supervisor of Planning and Development to review the nature of the hearing and provide an overview of what is being proposed. With that, I pass it to you, Hillary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. So today, as mentioned, it's for Bylaw 22-015, which is a road closure for a portion of a laneway located within the hamlet of Diamond City. Yeah, it was noted earlier on this year that there was a number of encroachments within this portion of alleyway. It's only a half alley. It isn't an actual full width of an alley. It's just, I think, 6 meters wide. And so with that, we had sent a letter stating that they could either remove their encroachments from the laneway as it is county property, or they could apply to close the road. And so in discussion with the two neighbors there discussed it and determined that they would like to purchase those lands from the county and close the road, as it was determined that the county also didn't see a reason to keep it open at this time. So the application for the road closure was received for this portion of laneway, and the road in question is undeveloped. And upon review, county administration determined that the road is not required as part of the county's road network. This is a similar situation as we had on the other side of this laneway to the east, where we closed a large portion of laneway due to some significant encroachments. Policy 109A allows the county to close a road and consolidate it to adjacent titles if it is determined that that road is no longer required as part of the road network, and as long as it is approved by Alberta Transportation. In all rural municipalities, we do require that Alberta Transportation has the final say in any road closure. So anytime we have a road closure after a public hearing or after a resolution has been made, we have to send it up to Alberta Transportation for the Minister of Transportation to sign off on that road closure. Then it comes back to the county for final second and third reading. In a circulation process, we did contact Alberta Transportation, and they had no objections to the county proceeding with this particular road closure, sale, and consolidation. If approved, the portions of the laneway would be consolidated to the titles to the south, being the Ences and the Van Manen properties. The notice of public hearing was put in the Sunny South News for 2 consecutive weeks, being November 8th and the 15th, and the notice was also sent to the adjacent landowners in this instance, just so that they are aware that the road closure application had been submitted. I did not get any feedback with regards to the notice in the Sunny South News, nor from the adjacent landowners, so there was no objections from any adjacent landowners with regards to this particular road closure. So with that, I do have a recommendation that the proposed road closure be sent to the Minister of Transportation for approval on the basis that we received no concerns or complaints with regards to this particular road closure, and that Alberta Transportation has, at least at the local level, consented to the application proceeding. Turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Hillary. As this is a public hearing, this is council's opportunity to receive input from the public. Those making presentations are asked to state their name and review their points. We ask you refrain from asking questions to council. The intention of the public hearing is not to debate or defend the contents of the bylaw or the position which the individual councillors may have on the bylaw. Questions asked of a councillor by a presenter may be ruled out of order. As I don't believe there is anyone in the room here to speak, I'll skip over the next part here, and I would open it up if there was anyone wishing to speak to this proposed bylaw. Is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? And I'll ask a third time, is there anyone wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Eric? Eric has moved to close the public hearing for bylaw 22-015, road closure, sale, and consolidation. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. With that, we can resume our public meeting. Is there any questions of council? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, you did mention you sent letters to the adjacent landowners. Is that the normal, the south landowners are able to take the whole alley? It's not like it has to get split back evenly or so?
So with regards to a lane closure, in this case, we only actually have the southern portion of the lane that was dedicated originally. The northern portion was never taken. So we still send out the notice to the adjacent landowners just so they're aware. If they had a concern or they said, oh, I have an interest in half of a lane, we would take that into consideration and present that to council as information. And so that's why I did want to make sure that it was quite clear as to the intent and that it was the consolidation to the south. So,
Any other questions from council? Claus?
Then I will move the recommendation that the proposed road closure be sent to the Minister of Transportation for approval.
Thank you, Claus. Claus has moved the recommendation that the proposed road closure be sent to the Minister of Transportation for approval. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you, Hillary.
yes, thank you. Just so council's aware that once Alberta Transportation does send back the approval, then I'll bring back second and third reading, which can be anywhere from 6 months to a year. So.
How would council like to proceed? Do you want to close off that delegation item, the first one, the D1, Regional Director of Emergency Management, or would you like to continue into our Community Service Department reports?
Anything required from D1?
Well, I don't really think we have any direction per se, I guess. Would that be fair?
Sorry,
Then I would like,
what was the question?
We didn't really give any direction on our our 9 o'clock presentation.
No, there is a request from the town of Coaldale that we do a resolution. However, I'm not sure if council has enough information at this time or if they'd like to defer it to the budget discussions tomorrow.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I'd like to defer it to budget discussion so we can get into costs and whatnot further.
I was just gonna move that we send it back to administration for a report, so I'm comfortable with that as well.
Why don't we do that as well? Then out of our discussions tomorrow, a report can come towards the 15th meeting. How's that sound?
Sure, would you still like that motion?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, therefore, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that we direct administration to review the proposal and come back to council with a detailed report.
Just in respect of staff's time, if tomorrow through the budget process that report is not needed, then we can discuss that then.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, John. John has moved to direct administration to bring forward a report to council, if required, regarding the Regional Director of Emergency Management presentation that we received at 9 o'clock this morning. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We can then move down to item F 1.1, Community Services, Bylaw 22-019, redesignate a portion of Plan 02107172, Block 2, Lot 1 in the southeast 61020 west of the 4th from rural agriculture to grouped country residential, first reading. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this bylaw being 22-019 is to redesignate a just over 7-acre title from rural agriculture to group country residential. The applicants did come into the county request asking if they could subdivide their parcel first Noting that there have been a number of parcels already out of the quarter section, the county's policy within the municipal development plan is that they would have to come back they would have to rezone the property prior to applying for subdivision. So that's what they have done. So with regards to the location for this particular property, just for council's information, it is just to the north of 8 Mile Lake, so kind of to the north and west of Coaldale. And you may recognize this area as an area that has just more recently had another rezoning application in it, the same quarter section, in fact. So it is an area that we've seen a large amount of fragmentation in the past through historical subdivisions, a forced road that goes around 8 Mile Lake. And so so this particular landowner is coming back just stating that they wish to subdivide as their parcel they feel is unmanageable at this time. They would wish to subdivide off 2 acres. That's their reasoning behind the subdivision itself. So it is this parcel here at the intersections of Range Road 20-5 and Township Road 10-0. With first reading, it is just to set the parameters for setting up the public hearing and sending out the notices for the application. I would recommend to council that first reading of the bylaw be approved so that we can set out the notices to the adjacent landowners, set the public hearing date, and then at the public hearing, I will describe any concerns that come from the circulation and also how this may or may not fit in with the county's municipal development plan and the objectives of the group country residential land use strategy. And I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Hillary. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is it, you said it's only the one piece, but when you go to group country residential, doesn't that have to include multiple housing units? Or how does that work?
Thank you, Councillor Hickey, through the chair. Not necessarily. In this instance, it's because of how the road is in kind of the barrier between all these parcels, the consideration would be just for this one parcel to group country residential, allowing them to subdivide further.
Any further questions? Would someone like to move first reading? Lauren?
I would move first reading of bylaw 22-019 for the redesignation of plan 0210-172, block 2, in southeast of 610
Thanks, Lauren. Lauren has moved the recommendation that bylaw 22-019 be read for a first time. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Hillary.
Thank you.
We can move down to your second item, F1.2, the Community Planning Association of Alberta, CPAA 2023 Annual Conference and Sponsorship. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you may or may not know, I am on the board for the Community Planning Association of Alberta, and as such, I am presenting to you the opportunity to be a sponsor at the annual conference, which is coming up this coming May. It'll be May 1st to 3rd this year, and it'll be in a similar location as it was last year in the Nisku area, just north of Leduc. County Council has historically sponsored this particular event, and it has been broadly attended by a number of councillors in the past. It is a good conference with regards to the platform that CPA is under, in that it is to bring planners, elected officials, CAOs, development officers, and a range of other people into the same to come together to hear about up-and-coming issues with regards to community planning within the province of Alberta. And so with that, I have included the sponsorship package for council's consideration. We have typically, County Council has agreed in the past to sponsor at a gold level, which allows for one free conference registration and also the opportunity for the name of Lethbridge County to be put out there at the conference itself. The value of having that conference registration, so it's a $700 value, so essentially it's paying for that one additional person to go to the conference, and $1,000 for the actual sponsorship. The sponsorship for CPA goes partially into their scholarships. So we have broadened our range of scholarships to go to students at CPA. We have a scholarship to the University of Lethbridge, the University of Calgary, and the University of Alberta. The sponsorship also does pay in part for some of the conference costs. CPA is a non-for-profit organization. I don't get paid to be on the board. It's just it's a good organization. The conferences have been typically very well attended, and the speakers have been exceptional in my opinion, and some other councils may be able to speak to that if they wish to. With that, I would, the recommendation that I have proposed is that any member of council may attend the 2023 CPAA annual conference, and I will send out through Anne as more information is on the speakers and the conference program. We'll send that out to you closer to the date, so you can decide then if you want to attend. But at this time, I would also recommend that the County Council sponsor the 2023 Community Planning Association conference at a gold sponsorship level, with the funds to be utilized from the council's discretionary reserve, which has been kind of the actions that council has taken to date. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Hillary. Any questions from council? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Traditionally, how many councillors have normally attended this?
I would say up to 5 have typically gone. Ranging from 3 to 5. I think there was 3 last year that went, but in the past, I don't think ever all of council has ever gone, but I think it's been 5 has been the most.
So just to follow up on that, if we look at a platinum sponsorship, it comes with 2 free conference registrations, and if the registration fee is $750, the platinum sponsorship essentially is the same as the gold, but an extra one extra conference registration, so it would be a net zero change to do that. If we're going to have participation of more than 2 people, in my mind, that would sort of make sense.
Any further questions or discussion on what John mentioned? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the math makes sense on that. That part works. I have some concerns on all of council going to all events, and so something, rather than trying to pick, say, one conference is more important than another, and we can start to really get into a lot of discussion on that. I like to see that we tap down a little bit on how many go out to everything, primarily based on budget. These are, everything ends up costing a fair amount, and I think 3 people can bring back a very solid message on what gets presented.
Thanks, Eric. Any further discussion on that? I will admit, this is one that on my time on council, I have not attended. Timing is usually a little bit challenging with seating, but I have heard positive things from members that have attended, but I would echo what Councillor Van Essen said. How would you like to proceed? John?
Thanks. I would like to move that any member of council that may wish to attend the 2023 CPAA annual conference be allowed to do so for a maximum of 3 council members. And that County Council sponsor the 2023 Community Planning Association Conference at the platinum level, is that?
Mm-hmm.
At the platinum level for the amount of $2,500.
Thank you, John. John has moved that up to 3 members of council.
Yeah.
Would that be fair? Up to 3 members of council be permitted to attend the 2023 CPAA conference, and that council provide sponsorship at the platinum level. Yeah, John? John? Yeah. That capture? Okay. No, that's okay. Any further discussion? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have 3 councillors who have an interest in attending?
I have been going to
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there more than 3 that would be wanting to attend?
I can't speak for Mark, but like I say, myself, I wouldn't be willing to commit to it. Klaus?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's really hard to commit to right at this moment in time, because I think, the circumstances are there. We're, I don't know, it's just about 5 months away, or just about 6, yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think the 3,
Yeah.
I think the 3 will work. We'll make it work.
Okay.
Okay, John?
Sorry, just one last comment. If we do come that there are 4 people that want to attend, that's something that we could address at a future meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Hillary.
Thank you.
Move down, F1.3, fire service response fees waiver request analysis. This is a follow-up to one of our previous meetings where we had a resident come forth and share their concerns regarding a fire on their property. Byron, I would throw it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, just to recap, on November 17th, you guys had tasked council, or tasked administration to do an analysis on that incident. I won't get too into details as we did that on the last meeting. I did calculate on, I wouldn't say a proper response, but what I would consider an adequate response. Of course, each situation is very different in real life as opposed to looking back at it. But I did come up with some options. One of them is to deny it. It's already been reduced originally and presented to him. And the other would be to reduce it to $13,822.50, as that was what I deemed as an appropriate response from looking back at the situation.
Thank you, Byron. Any questions from council? Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you were to go with that recommendation, who eats the difference? Does the county have to pay that to the city, or how does that work?
That's correct, through the chair, Councillor Hickey. It would come out of council as we have cost. I think I figured it out at the last one. It was about $10,000 of what we have paid out. Now, none of that is recovery of costs through other contracts with the city or Coaldale. So we would eat the revenue to offset costs. There's not actual. We're still over and above actual payout, if that makes sense.
So I guess, could you give us sort of a number what we would actually have to, what would the cost be for that at that reduced rate?
Okay, so the cost that we paid out on that incident, we paid fire services that responded, we paid the city's invoice. Sterling invoice was $10,864.50. Okay, my recommendation is that we invoice for $13,822. So to judge percentage of Lethbridge's contract percentage, what we should have recovered for that, or Coaldale's percentage of their contract to cover for that is tough to break down. You'd have to do it per hour throughout the whole year. So basically, I would say with what I've recommended, we're recovering our cost output, but we're not seeing any revenue to offset the whole year's costs of the fire service.
So then, if I get you correctly, we're not actually eating the $16,000 difference between the two numbers. You're just not making any profit off of the fire.
That's correct, and I don't like to use the word profit because we do pay Lethbridge Fire, Coaldale Fire, those fees through the year, so it's an offset of revenue as opposed to income.
Yeah, go ahead, John. John and then Klaus.
I think Lauren covered that off. So basically, because our contract with the city of Lethbridge is a fixed rate up until a certain point in time, and then it becomes fee for service, the $10,860 is what is over and above our normal contract rate of fee for service. So the county, from the standpoint of actual revenue or expenses over and above our fee-for-services, is sitting at $10,860. So if we reduce this to the recommendation of $13,000, we would not be any funds out of pocket. We would just not be able to apply that towards offsetting the cost of our annual budget to the city.
Through Speaker, that is exactly correct.
Claus, and then Eric?
Well, I think we heard quite a bit of what went on here, and still doesn't make any sense the way the whole thing went and the miscommunication that was done. Have we exhausted discussions with the city of reducing it more?
Yes.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I can see that if we're already down to under that 8-hour amount, you know what, that's in our contract. So I'd like to move the recommendation that council reduce fire response invoice number 123032 to $13,822.50.
Thank you, Eric. Eric has moved the recommendation that council reduce fire response invoice number 123032 to $13,822.50. Any further discussion? Oh, sorry.
One thing I just want to say is that we are continually coming forward to council with various reports, tax penalties, fire penalties, and administration has been consistent in our line that we don't want to set a precedence. But I just want to say that these two situations we were dealing with earlier today and this situations are anomalies. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion that's been made? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I sort of just wanted to expand on that a little bit. My position in terms of waiving fees have been pretty consistent over my time sitting in this chair, and it's been consistently that I'm not really in favor of doing any of that. But realizing and understanding that these are this situation and the other one that we dealt with today are two situations that are drastically out of skew, and I believe and hope that we've now put controls in place to make sure that this doesn't become a continual problem. That's I think that's important to note.
Thanks, John. Anything further? If not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Byron.
Thank you.
Move down in our agenda, F2, infrastructure, F2.1, bylaw 22-008, commercial industrial municipal tax incentive bylaw. So this was before us quite some time ago. I know we've went out to the public for some feedback. We've had some internal discussions, and this is being brought forward today. So with that, I would throw it to you, Devin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a brief history, as Reeve Campbell is summarized at the April 21st, 2022 council meeting. The commercial and industrial municipal tax incentive bylaw was read for a first time. After this, administration engaged the public through a survey to obtain feedback on the proposed bylaw, which was presented to council during a regular meeting on July 7th. Direction was then given at this meeting to bring the bylaw back to an upcoming council meeting. In addition to this, a workshop was held on October 13th with council to discuss the bylaw and the public feedback received. So based on the public feedback received to date and direction by council, administration has provided some options for council to consider when debating this proposed bylaw. And just a refresher, the current bylaw does state a minimum $50,000 threshold with a 4-year rebate, with the first year at 100%, second year 75, third year 50, and finally the fourth year at 25%. The option 1 that we are presenting is a minimum $200,000 investment with that same 4-year rebate that I just spoke to. Option number 2 would be, again, a $200,000 investment, but with a 3-year rebate, with the first year at 75%, then to 50, then to 25. And option 3 is a minimum of $1 million investment with a 5-year 100% flat rebate. Some alternatives would be to read the existing bylaw for a second and third time. The con to this would be that this may be viewed from the public as not taking their feedback into consideration. Second alternative is revise the bylaw based on public feedback and read it a second and third time. A pro would be this would take into consideration the feedback received by the public, and a con, the county may not have servicing available to support new developments. And the third alternative would be to defeat the bylaw. This would give the county time to secure additional servicing capacity to accommodate increased development, and the con, with no bylaw in place, there's no standard set for incentives, and they would be brought to council on a case-by-case basis. So with that, I will pass it back to you, Mr. Chairman, to debate the merits of this bylaw.
Thank you, Devin. I'd open it up to council. I would just speak for myself. I know I haven't had, I would suggest I had very little feedback on this. I know we did have an open house on another matter, and this became a discussion point. As far as feedback that I received myself was minimal or non-existent. I don't personally feel very strongly about this, either for or against, but I'm interested to hear how council feels and what their thoughts are. So I'd open up to council for further discussion. Go ahead, John, and then Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I spoke with a number of business owners in my division and outside the division, and the feedback that I got from them was mixed. A lot of them were, well, that doesn't do me any good because it's something that I've already developed, and but in talking with them, they realized that you know, if they wish to expand in the future, it's something that they could definitely take advantage of. The general consensus that I got back is the $50,000 minimum is far too low, but the people that I talk to and myself personally see value in this. You know, in regards to, you know, whether or not we have servicing available, this is certainly just an incentive and a thank you for people to put investment in the county. It's by no means saying that, you know, the doors are wide open and we're going to take everything, because everything needs to go through the regular planning and development, and everything has to be weighed based on whether or not there are services available to support the development. So I really don't see that as much of a con, because this is just something that you know, if somebody is looking at developing here and we can facilitate them, it may be the push over the top of the hill that will have them decide to bring it into the county, as opposed to maybe one of our neighboring smaller urbans or the city or another municipality in general.
Thanks, John. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Feedback quite similar to what's been discussed on net neutral. Some slightly for, some slightly against, no hard any which direction. And when something has that small of amount of impact, buy-in, then I think we're going through the motions in waste. And, you know, it's looking to be not a big impact one way or other. And so then why are we putting the effort in? Servicing, it's been well discussed. We are not in a place to service the bigger stuff. This is somewhat targeted towards the bigger developments. We already have a tremendously good environment for people to build in within the county. And finally, we passed a motion at the last meeting to bring a resolution forward to the Foothills Little Bow. It'll be discussed further, but this is essentially looking at thawing of the tax assessment and allowing municipalities to have a greater impact on that. Now, if we're concerned about image, that presents a terrible image that we're giving commercial a break and we're looking at farmland. That will not be presented well. I feel we need to pick our direction. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Claus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that commercial farmland and, farmland, I think that those are two different topics in my opinion. And it's not comparing oranges or apples to apples. So I think that in this case here, I think that if we're gonna be doing something, I think we, to get some investment into the county, and if you do the small amounts, like the 50,000, from my opinion, is a non-existent. But going to the 200, I don't think it will make or break anybody of coming to the county, but I think the substantial amount of, for example, the million, would make some difference if a person changed their mind to come in or not come into the county, or go to the neighbors. But I do think that with if we go with that substantial amount, that, the investment within a 5-year term and the flat rate to the 100%, I would like to change that a little bit to, do that in a step-by-step. So starting with for example, the 100% first year, and the 75, and then the 50, and then 25, and that, to leave it at that, and the 4-year step down.
Thank you, Claus. Any further? Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the only response I've had back is very similar to what everybody else has said, that the minimum is too low. And, I guess a lot of people, well, I didn't get that when I built my building, but I mean, you could say that about a lot of things. So I do think, though, that it is somewhat of an incentive to attract people, although I know that we don't have the services to provide to a lot of business, but I think it's either one or the other. So I think this is a better route to go than to try and provide services to everybody. It's because the services could vary so much from one facility to the next. It's really hard to guess what they would need. So I would be willing to support somewhere above $200,000, but on a step basis. I would like to see it start at 75% the first year, though. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Any further feedback, discussion? John?
Does Councillor Hickey have a number in mind in terms of, if we were going to look at option 2, what you would consider to be reasonable?
Well, I honestly think the number I have in my mind would be around 500,000.
Thanks, Lauren. John?
And, sorry, just one more comment. In terms of Councillor Van Essen's issue, concern about the potential of the fixed rate on farmland being changed, realizing that if the fixed rate on farmland gets changed, then the mill rate on farmland would definitely be decreased as well. But this incentive also does not preclude farmers that want to do secondary development on any of their properties. As a matter of fact, I would envision this as being something that if they're looking at doing a commercial adventure, as a profit add or a value add to their organization, that this is something that they could take full advantage of. So I look at it as very much a win-win for anybody that wants to do any kind of industrial or commercial development in the county.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, from what I understand in taxes, farm buildings are not taxed at a high rate whatsoever. Most farm developments are not about to develop to commercial zoning to put up a business. And if I understand how this is set up, this is targeting commercially zoned property. And it's perceptions, while they may not be have full merit, it still puts out that image that here, commercial, come on in, we welcome you, but we're pursuing this other to look at some sort of an increase.
Claus, and then John?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that we've been hammering on that quite a lot already. Like, we're open for business. We really want to get some more business in, and with that business, we were mostly talking about commercial business. So that's extra. The agriculture is there, I didn't think this was anything to, for the agriculture, for buildings or anything like that on the agricultural land that would qualify for something like this, and that's why I think it was strictly for commercial that would have. And with the services, of course, we all know that we can only go that far with the people that would qualify for commercial without the service that we don't have, of course. But I think that to make the incentive there, and I would like to go as far as I would like to compromise on my first thinkings of the $1 million. Come back down to the 500, and then with the 3-year rebate, I would like to move that one.
Thank you, Klaus. Yeah, sorry, John, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't thinking about an additional agricultural building. I was thinking about, some of the organizations like Crystal Springs that have taken the agriculture and done value added in terms of, what they've done there. They've taken their farming operation and put in a value added commercial structure as another revenue stream for that. But also keep in mind that as a tax base in general, and all of our ratepayers in general, we're all struggling with trying to find ways to attract more tax base, because in commercial and industrial tax base is one of the highest mill rates, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So having programs in place and incentivize commercial and industrial development within the county that will, over the course of the lifespan of that building, say 50 years, will generate a significant amount of revenue. It helps all of our current ratepayers keep their taxes low. That is the residential, that is the all of our agricultural partners and ratepayers, all the way across the board. The more industrial development that we can get, and even if it is slightly fragmented, every little bit helps everybody keep their taxes at an affordable rate. This isn't a situation where we're looking at and we're picking on the agriculture in the sense of saying, hey, we're going to give an incentive to somebody to bring in an agriculture building. These incentives really, when you're looking at, even if we do the 3-year, it's 75%, 50%, and 25%. Over the large scale and the lifespan of the building, this is a drop in the bucket. And if that's the one key that brings them into the county to build the development, we're talking over the lifespan of the building, maybe giving a 1% break on somebody right out of the gate just to bring them in. This has in programs, and if you look at the industrial park in Coaldale, they've been quite successful filling that up, and in no small part because they have offered significant and far greater than this tax incentives or free land to people that actually wanted to build there. That's why that development sprung up so quickly, is it brought in people, and it made the decision for the people of, do I want to be here or do I want to be in this other municipality? They made choices based on those incentives that were readily available for them. So it is a small amount, but it is a very, very good gesture to show that we as the county are open for business, and we are looking for people to bring in value-added products to complement our agriculture and not compete with.
Thank you, John. So Klaus has made a motion. Klaus has moved second reading of Bylaw 22-008 as amended to reflect a minimum $500,000 investment with a 3-year rebate, year 1, 75%, year 2, 50%, year 3, 25%. Is that correct, Klaus? Okay. Any further discussion? Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the start, when we started discussing this business tax for the new businesses coming in, I was against it, but thinking this whole thing over, I think if you're gonna go ahead with it, with the incentive down there, that that will maybe tell some of the businesses, hey, we want you in the county, and just like John said someday, you know, the incentive is maybe a drop in the bucket, but at least we being heard by some of the businesses, hey, we want you. That's the way I kind of look at it now. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Morris.
Class maybe was a help there too.
Thank you, Morris. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we considering any amount of retroactiveness on buildings that have been started and either are not in operation, or any projects that are, partially underway? Maybe they have their permits issued and they haven't started building. What's our start date?
So the bylaw states for new developments only, so anything in progress wouldn't apply. It would be for new developments. And, I believe anything that has started wouldn't be applicable to the bylaw.
Ann?
I would like to say too that that is a precedent that we have to follow the current bylaws in place, so trying to do something retroactive would be very detrimental, I believe, and not good practice.
Thank you. Plus?
Yeah, I would like to echo that. I think that if we go back that far, we're going to get all kinds of issues going on. I don't think that was the intent of what we're trying to do here.
So clause is moved that bylaw 22-008 be read a second time as amended to reflect the $500,000 minimum investment with a 3-year rebate. Lauren?
Sorry, what were the rebates again? What was the 100%?
75% year one, year
Oh, the same
250.
as written?
Yeah, year
Okay,
3, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, I will call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. You want to do third? Three? Do a third?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll move that we move the third reading of option 2, but move the $500,000 investment with a 3-year rebate of 75 first year, 50 second year, and 25% third year.
Thank you, Claus. Claus is moved. Move third reading of bylaw 22-008 as amended to reflect a $500,000 minimum investment with a 3-year rebate, year 1, 75%, year 2, 50%, year 3, 25%. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Devin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council.
We have 2 ACP grants coming up here in our agenda, so we will deal with our first one, F2.2, Alberta Community Partnership Grant Application, Lethbridge County / Coaldale Regional Water Supply Study. Devin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as council is aware, Lethbridge County and the town of Coaldale have been working together to find a solution to water capacity issues that currently exist in and around the Coaldale area. The county and Coaldale have both retained an engineering firm to provide engineering analysis on our respective infrastructure. As the county system is interconnected with Coaldale's, the Alberta Community Partnership Grant funds will help examine the entire system holistically and provide a preliminary engineering design for both municipalities. The study will examine potential solutions for Lethbridge County and Coaldale to accommodate growing development and water demands. And as part of the ACP grant application under intermunicipal collaboration, a resolution from each participating municipality must be made by council. So the resolution that I have today is that council approve the Alberta Community Partnership Intermunicipal Collaboration Grant application with the town of Coaldale for the Lethbridge County Coaldale Regional Water Supply Study, and I'll just add in with Lethbridge County as the managing partner.
Ann?
And you will remember when we were doing the capital budget on Tuesday that there was some funding in there for this study, and we also had additional funding as background in case we weren't successful on the grant application.
Thank you. Any questions from council? How would you like to proceed? John, go ahead. Okay,
Oh, you got a question?
Go ahead, Klaus.
On that, and then looking at the next one, of course, the other community grant, With doing this separate, I know they're kind of separate, but if we would work on a bigger scale, like on a bigger regional one, would that be more effective, or is that not possible? Just a question.
So by doing it this way, we can leverage 2 grants, and we can get $400,000 compared to $200,000.
But I was referring on maybe a bigger amount that way, if we would do it in a different way.
Just to answer that question, Councillor Van der Veen, there is many discussions happening right now about water regional, and it's very positive because we're working with the other MDs, the other towns and communities. But I think this piece is very more of an urgent piece, and so this is why we want to concentrate on this specific application.
And I'll just add to that, 200,000 is the maximum you can get. We can't apply for any more, so we're getting the maximum amount on both of those applications.
John?
Thanks. I'd like to move the the council approve the Alberta Community Partnership Intermunicipal Collaborative Grant application with the town of Coaldale for the Lethbridge County / Coaldale Regional Water Supply Study, with Lethbridge County being lead?
The managing partner.
Managing partner.
Yes.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that council approves the Alberta Community Partnership Intermunicipal Collaboration Grant application with the town of Coaldale for the Lethbridge County Coaldale Regional Water Supply Study, with Lethbridge County acting as the managing partner. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And moving down, F2.3, Alberta Community Partnership Grant Application Support, Highway 3 Corridor, Regional Water Supply Study.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the MD of Taber, the town of Taber, town of Coaldale, and Lethbridge County would partner on a study to analyze potential water servicing along the Highway 3 corridor between Coaldale and Taber. The study would include an assessment of water demands and infrastructure, evaluate water supply alternatives, establish potential solutions and phasing, and develop a preliminary design and cost estimate. So we'll be working with, like I said, Coaldale, town of Taber, MD of Taber, to look at some other solutions for that area east of Coaldale. So we're not solely focusing on one source for potable water. We'll look regionally and see if there's other options available. I know the town of Taber currently has a water treatment plant. They pull from the Chin Reservoir and treat water and then send it out to the MD of Taber in various areas. So it'd be mainly looking at town of Taber's treatment plant, the distribution system within the town and the MD, and then Lethbridge County's distribution system as well as Coaldale's. So the recommendation for this one, and this is just again a support for the Municipal District of Taber, that County Council support the Municipal District of Taber's submission of a 2022/23 Alberta Community Partnership Grant application in support of the Highway 3 Corridor Regional Water Supply Study Project. And like I said, Municipal District of Taber would be the managing partner on this one.
Thank you, Devin. Any questions? Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, the grant will cover all the engineering costs, or just? Okay.
Correct. Yep, 100% funded through ACP.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, John?
Pay for water. I would like to move that County Council support the Municipal District of Taber, who's the managing partner, in their submission of a 2022-23 Alberta Community Partnership Grant application in support of the Highway 3 Corridor Regional Water Supply Study Project.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that County Council supports Municipal District of Taber as the managing partner submission of a 2022-23 Alberta Community Partnership Grant application in support of the Highway 3 Corridor Regional Water Supply Study Project. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you know, we're eligible for that grant, and that grant is set at $200,000 if I...
Correct.
Yeah. So what if, you know, some engineering firm is gonna tackle this, and they're gonna come up, well, it's gonna be, if you want a complete study and a rate study and everything else done the right way, it's gonna be a lot more than 200,000. How are we gonna approach that then?
So at the time when this study is done, we will get to a preliminary design phase, but you're absolutely correct, Councillor Zeenstra. Beyond that, we will be requesting additional funds from council to further that study.
John?
I'm assuming there's a qualification there and that if it makes sense.
Yes, I should have said that in advance. If it makes sense for us to proceed, then we will come to council and request additional funds, yes.
Thank you. Anything further? So John has moved the recommendation. I would call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, Devin.
Thank you, council.
Moving down on our agenda is F3.1, Lethbridge District Exhibition, Ottawa Trade Mission. And I would turn it over to the CAO, Ann Mitchell. Ann?
Good morning. The county has received a request from the Lethbridge and District Exhibition for the Reeve and CAO to go to Ottawa on a trade mission for February 14th and 15th. I think we've shown over the last year or so that the exhibition is really in partnership with the county, specifically with our recent donation. And I think it would be very beneficial for the county to have a presence there and to be available to support the exhibition in this request.
Ann, can you speak to who would be funding this?
Oh, sorry, yeah. It does highlight this in your report, but it is completely funded through the exhibition. I believe it's Tourism Alberta that is funding this exhibition trip.
Thank you, Ann. I was at an event for Team Lethbridge last night and just briefly spoke to the CEO at Exhibition Park about this. Their vision for the 20 delegates will be our local area MLAs, our MP. I believe the Premier is invited, some other high-ranking DMs in various departments, and then at a more local level, it'll be representation, I believe a couple members from Exhibition Parks Board, some staff from Exhibition Park, as Ann suggested. They've asked 2 members from the county. I believe there will be members from the city, and I believe economic development, and some other partner groups in the area, I believe is kind of what the vision is for this, but this was just thrown out last week. And the intention when they're in Ottawa is, as it says in the notes here, to piggyback on the Farm Credit Canada's February 15th event, and then parlay that into a separate event that would be hosted by this group with various dignitaries, government officials from the federal level invited, so that we can showcase the area and what it has to offer. That's my takeaway to this point. Does that sound
That's
captured in?
correct, and this is just came in recently, so that is the background that we're aware of, and it is a time-sensitive issue, and they do need a response, which is why we added it to the agenda for a decision.
I would open it up to council. Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I heard you say, showcase the area, but who's putting that package together?
Exhibition Park would have the lead on that, Morris. It would be their event, yeah.
And what about it's pretty important for the city too, they have input, and of course we'll have input.
Absolutely. Any further questions or discussion? As Ann said, I believe next week they need a response so that they can respond to Travel Alberta to start booking. Lauren?
I would move the recommendation that Reeve Campbell and CAO Mitchell will be authorized to attend the Lethbridge Exhibition Trade Mission in Ottawa on February the 14th and 15th of 2023.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has moved the recommendation. Any further discussion? Claus.
Will you also be lobbying politicians out there?
Yeah, that would be the intent, would to have them present, yes.
Okay.
So Lauren has moved the recommendation that Reeve Campbell and CAO Mitchell be authorized to attend the Lethbridge and District Exhibition Trade Mission in Ottawa on February 14th and 15th, 2023. Any further discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And if
Just
we-
for, just for
Sorry.
a point of agenda,
Mhm.
we added J1, I
Mhm.
believe. It might be
Mhm.
more feasible to do that
Yep.
ahead of.
The close? Yep, for sure. I'm ahead of you, Ann, for once. With that, we did have an addition to our agenda under J, County Council and Committee updates. And with that, I would, for J1, I would throw it to Deputy Reeve Kurbis. And the floor is yours, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to give my fellow councilors and our general public a bit of a synopsis. Yesterday, I had the privilege of attending on behalf of the county a Truth and Reconciliation training seminar that was spearheaded by Southgrow and was put on in Standoff. So I had the pleasure of sitting with and listening with a number of our other municipalities and human resource individuals, employees of municipalities, to talk about truth and reconciliation. The keynote speaker was Francis Firstcharger. He is a extremely well-spoken individual and quite successful, carries a number of degrees, and is very passionate about his community and about his Blackfoot culture and heritage. So he was very gracious to regale us with some of his memories of his childhood and growing up in Blackfoot community and his culture, as well as some of the history of the Blackfoot tribe and how a lot of the individual reserves got set up. And more importantly, talked to us at great length about truth and reconciliation and what we as neighboring municipalities can do to help move that forward. Three very key points that came up repeatedly and that he stressed, and I think that are extraordinarily important for all of us to understand with truth and reconciliation, but as well with our fellow man, no matter who they are, is respect. First key point, he spoke for a great deal of time about respecting individuals, respecting other cultures, and treating all of our fellow man with dignity and respect. He spoke also about, and this sort of feeds on that, is that that there is a desire on the part of our First Nations to be treated equally and to have their voice heard and not to be talked down to and not to be condescending when speaking with any of our First Nations. And I think that, again, that's a very important key. Third thing that he was very passionate about is be kind and considerate to all individuals. Recognizing that, and I'm paraphrasing some of my experiences from the past, but there for the grace of God go I. He spoke about a lot of the problems with drugs and opiates and alcohol, and he said that, and mentioned many times that it's important to treat everyone with kindness and consideration, and even those that are significantly less fortunate than ours. It was a good day, and it was a good exercise. I appreciate the county giving me the opportunity to attend and represent them, and yeah, that really, in a nutshell, is the key notes that I took out of that, and it was well worth the time to attend. So thank you for allowing me this time to reiterate that to you and to give you a synopsis.
Thank you, John. Thanks for taking the time to attend, and thanks for sharing that with us today. I think that we're all acutely aware of, through Truth and Reconciliation, this is obviously a huge undertaking, a huge endeavor, and I think obviously just given our proximity and our location, the importance it has to us here. So thank you for attending. Any questions for John or any discussion on that? If not, we do have one closed session item, the 2023 Bank of Montreal Calgary Stampede Farm Family Awards Program. Have a discussion on potential nominees there. I would entertain a motion to enter a closed session. Eric? Eric has moved we enter a closed session. Any further
Come out of closed session.
Thank you. Eric has moved to come out of our closed session. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Yes.
Before you do that, Morris, I just wanted to throw out a couple thank yous. We attended the Coaldale parade on Friday night. I just wanted to say a thank you to staff for decorating the float, for preparing the float, and to Doug Burke for piloting the float for us. As we move into the holiday season, I just wanted to acknowledge the work of staff and in their initiatives through the office here. I know we're usually a toy collection point. I know there's food hampers, and actually Councillor Hickey suggested that council participate in a hamper as well, so we'll be doing that. We can talk about the details of that after, but just given the environment that we're currently in, just to really appreciate all the work staff does around the holidays, trying to make things a little bit better for some other people, and I know council's really happy that we can participate in any way we can, so thank you. With that, Morris?
Yep.
Morris has moved for adjournment at 11:32. I'll call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.